All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you!
This is my boomstick!
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horrorheads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. Normally, I would introduce myself and Dave as your host, myself being Daniel DeBona, but Dave got a little busy tonight, and he's not going to be able to join us, but we're trying our best to keep this live recording and doing shit on time on track. So I went and got everybody's favorite guest host, our own resident kaiju. I've got Michael Hunger with us. How you doing, Hunger?
Happy to be here, Daniel.
Well,
always love a Wednesday with you.
Yeah, I love that you're here. I really do. We've got a weird one. So anybody who tuned in last week who knows that we did Sinners knew that our focus for the upcoming bit was going to be newer movies that Dave and I had not got around to seeing and or recording about. We've been kind of waiting for some things to go to streaming. So when I threw this over to Hunger, I told you, I was like, look, it's got to be something that's new to both of us, even if it's not a new movie. And so Hunger did the digging this time and pulled up with the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Where did you get the idea for this one before we get into it too much? Like I'd never even heard of this movie.
So I can't remember exactly the first time it came up, but it's one of those that like you hear about it and it's been kind of lingering in the back of my mind. It's been in my just watch list or whatever you want to call it to, oh, hey, here's this movie I've heard good things about. And I just kept hearing good things about it. So finally, whenever you asked me the other day for, something out there, it's like, let's make, I took a shot because I was like, I really want to watch this movie. I can't think of another reason I would go out of my way to watch this movie. And I just hope that maybe you hadn't watched it yet. Well, so that was my line of thinking on it was.
Not only had I not watched it, like I said, to be 100% honest with you, when you said the name, it struck some sort of weird, maybe I saw a post about that or a reel at some point in the past. Well, let's face it, 2016 was 9 years ago. So at some point in the last 9 years, it sounded familiar, but that's all I had. I had to go look it up to see who I was expecting to see in it. Poster was not looking familiar. Just the phrase, the Autopsy of Jane Doe, kind of got me and sounded kind of familiar. So without further ado,
surprised too because with it being you mentioning 9 years old, I can't think of a time I heard it before in the last couple months. The main impetus was the guys on last podcast did their movie stories recently, and they just kind of threw it away as one of those, oh yeah, that was a good movie kind of thing. So I've heard about it in the last 6 months, so it was weird for me to find out, oh, this is, going on a decade old.
Right. So let's get down to it. So in a section that we are calling slicing and dicing, I mean, what are your initial thoughts here about the Autopsy of Jane Doe? Like, did it kind of live up to what you thought it might bring to the table?
I mean, with it, it's hard to say what I thought it would bring. Because like I said, I had no ideas going in. And of course, we always try to go into these things blind. So I didn't. And realistically, if you Google it, you can't even really find anything other than like the bare synopsis is the Autopsy of Jane Doe. It's a father and a son. They're medical examiners. They get this Jane Doe. They do an autopsy. shit gets weird because it's a movie that we watch together. So of course it gets weird.
Correct.
So I didn't really have any ideas going into it, but based on the little bit that I had, I was, I don't know, not pleasantly surprised, pleasantly affirmed to the idea of, I mean, as we always say, I'm not trying to bury the lead on anything, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I had no predisposition to what I thought I was getting into.
And, that always helps so much when it comes to movies sometimes, because I feel like there are so many times, well, it happens on this show pretty often. And, we always end up going back and referencing this one. And I mean, I'm sorry, Zach Krieger, I know you got a new hit movie out and everybody's, all on your dick right now. I haven't seen Weapons yet. Can't say anything. But we always go back to Barbarian, right? Like the hype was just so much that even though I was actively trying to avoid it, I could not. So it very much was, you're right. Like it was a pleasant surprise. It was a pleasant affirmation of knowing that things that are good, because I liked this. I liked this movie, and knowing that things like this can kind of fly under the radar. Now, that being said, I do very willingly not follow a lot of horror movie outlet, like review outlets and stuff like that on social media, because they are completely incapable of not spoiling things, or just not giving too much away. Like they can't handle it. They absolutely cannot. Like their whole thing is they're just always bursting at the seams to tell you something, which I get, right? I do this once a week. But so I don't follow them on social media purposefully. So occasionally these smaller ones like this do kind of slip through the cracks. But I did enjoy this. I liked it a lot. I mean, this thing was made for $6 million. And it's the guy who did Troll Hunter, which we did back on this show not too long ago. And we loved it. We thought the Troll Hunter was beautifully done. And so, I didn't find out any of that until I hit play, which, by the way, just sidebar rant, if we could just get streaming figured the fuck out, the fact that I can watch this on Prime, AMC Plus through Prime, but I cannot just watch it on AMC Plus, has yet to stop bothering me. I use AMC Plus, but it is not connected to my Prime account. Therefore, I had to watch this in another way. I straight up bought it. I regret nothing. I'm glad to have given my $10. But the fact that when I'm on Prime, it's advertised as being on AMC Plus, but when I go over to AMC Plus, it's not there. Figure it out. Figure it out. This doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Never forget what they took from us. What cord got cut?
So, but this movie did a lot of things really well. I thought it was, I mean, first and foremost, this thing was ridiculously tense. This ended up being a movie I didn't take a lot of notes on, because it wasn't that I was afraid I would miss something, because when we get into talking about story, not a lot happens in this movie, right? Like there's not this big, huge story that slowly develops that you might miss some details, but you don't look away from the screen just because you're so locked in. I was just tense the entire time I was watching this thing.
Yeah, most of my notes boil down to like little, especially in the first half, because later on I was able to kind of put things together. But in the first half, it was just like, ooh, let me wait for a little bit of shadow. Here's a funny one-liner. Here's a little bit of something I might be able to reference later.
Yeah, it did. So it did a lot of those things really well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a crisp 86 minutes, so there's not much that you can miss out on at any point. And I can guarantee, based on looking at my notes from earlier, that I think there's at least one thing that I didn't understand too well, but I also didn't want to, I wanted to come into this episode off of one watch, if that makes any sense. Because I was like I always like being able to piece things together as we're talking about them, instead of, oh yeah, let me watch it again and try to make sense of it before I talk about it.
I too do the exact same thing, and every once in a while we'll watch something and then not be able to get to it for a few weeks, like last week on last week with Sinners, and just one thought bangs around in my head that I cannot confirm nor deny until I get on here and start talking to the microphone. So let's get into it in a section that we're calling, a quick question. What the fuck? Let's talk about the story of the autopsy of Jane Doe. So, outside of the very basic premise of father and son autopsy this body, did you at any point kind of feel like you knew where this was going? Did any of this, did it flow for you? Did you like the way this story played out?
So Daniel, you know me probably better than anybody I know at this point. And you know how much I love being able to just do, like the icky shuffle of, oh, hey, I figured that out. Yeah, we watched the Unbearable Greatness of Being, or that Nick Cage movie with
Nick
Pedro
Cage's Nick Cage
Pascal.
movie. Yeah.
Hey, I know what's going on. I had no fucking clue at any point in this movie what was going on, and I am open and ready to admit that. But I loved it because I don't know. I think it's because of how quick everything was. Because, like I said, it's an 86-minute movie, so there's not like you kind of gotta keep on your feet about what's going on. But there is something that I love about the idea of, that you were so afraid of, like, it's like the reference to Salem, the whole thing of like the payoff of, oh, there's like there were no witches in Salem,
Right?
There weren't. And it's just that whole idea of like, as much as it sucks now, because spoiler alert, hate it for you, Brian Cox, hate it for you, Emil Hirsch, definitely hate it for you, the girlfriend of Emil Hirsch. I didn't look up what her name was, but she got it worst of anybody. But really like Brian Cox says at one point, we're just things in her way.
Yeah, stops along the road.
Yep, we're stops on the road, and it's all because of these puritanical assholes 600 years ago who were so fucking worried about what the Bible told them to be worried about that they went ahead and made what the Bible told them to be worried about.
If only there were some modern lesson to be learned about grabbing these ridiculously old things and trying to make them modern and then creating the monster that you fear, or at least the illusion of said monster. If only there was a way to draw that into what is happening now, because you're absolutely right. Like that whole idea, we'll just fast forward to the end here. That whole idea of there were no witches in Salem, but what if the tragedy and the trauma of what happened to these innocent women in Massachusetts then created, the evil that they were so afraid of. They redefined generational trauma with this. That's a phrase we kept using last week, and it was very applicable and very, very real to what was happening in Sinners. But this was like the creation of so much trauma that it had to play out for centuries. I mean, this just had to keep going. This was such a ridiculous amount of pain and suffering that these people went through. I loved the fact that when we did get that reveal of she was an accused witch in Salem, that they were very specific about kind of, what was wrong with her and how she was tortured, because anybody who's ever done more than just heard the phrase Salem witch trials knows that we weren't actually burning any of the, we as in white Americans, I guess.
You're from the Northeast. You count.
Fuck you. I'm not from the North. Virginia is not the Northeast.
Close enough.
Oh, gee. The original capital of the Confederacy was in Richmond, Virginia. It's the South. All right. moving along.
I mean, if that's what you're basing things on, that's on you, man.
Anyway, the idea that they then created this monster that they were so afraid of was a really powerful thing. But they go, he says, well, none of them were actually burned. But then we look at at the injuries she had. Yeah, joints were broken, they were tortured, they were, one was pressed to death. For the most point, they were hanged. But these injuries do make sense because they were also just left in absolutely miserable conditions in hopes that they would eventually confess and they could feel better about executing them. So I do love that they took a pretty historically accurate route to tie this into the Salem witch trials. I liked that a lot. I really loved how the reactions to jump scares in this movie, for instance, the time that Brian Cox is in the little bathroom and he sees the silhouette behind the shower curtain. Emile Hirsch sees it. Brian Cox rips it open. Emile Hirsch goes to react. Nothing happens. Then Brian Cox gets dragged from behind. We don't get this really over-the-top horror movie theatrical scream and, oh my God, what do I do out of Emile Hirsch. We get this immediate reaction to the fact that something just grabbed his dad. And so there were other times where the jump scares in this movie, while they were legitimate jump scares, even though I fucking knew, even though I knew when he cut that hole in the door and he was staring at it, I was like, oh, something's going to pop up on the other side of that door and we're going to look at it through the hole and I'm not going to be scared. It still scared me because, that's why I watch these things, right? I enjoy those moments. But his reaction was so deadpan because he's giving us this moment of, well, of course that's what fucking happened. Like, he reacted the way that I should have because we both knew what was coming, but I'm the idiot. Like, I'm just over here. I love the movies, and just eating Sour Patch Kids. And he reacted the way I should have because we were both 100% knowledgeable as to what was going to happen. I loved some of those things where they took jump scares and sold them differently than they would in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I did really like the jump scares because the one that sticks out in my mind is and I'm going to end up backwards into explaining why this definitely worked for me. The one that sticks out in my mind right now is whenever he gets up on as weird as it is, and it's one of those, like, I'm just almost trying to sell that this is about to be a jump scare, but it's still working, is whenever he drags the chair and then the lamp. And he pulls down the grate off of and then something flies through the ducts and he falls back off the chair. Then he sees the shadow in the door, but it's just Brian Cox coming to, even though it makes no sense for Brian Cox to be there, he's all of a sudden there standing in the door as he, kind of fuzzes him back into frame to say, hey, what are you doing? But as frustrating as it was to me, because a lot of the jump scares seem so predicated on the idea of, why is Emile Hirsch chasing these sounds around his house? Like, it's already been established, the house, like, first of all, you have a mortuary in the basement of your house. It's already creepy.
Yeah, super creepy.
But it's been well established that you're like 3 generations in, add-ons on add-ons on add-ons. You've created this labyrinthine spookiness. But every time the second anything is like, oh, hey, we're about to cut this girl open. What was that? Let me go wander around my house to find out what that sound was. But you know what? I opened the restaurant I work at today. And you know what I did as soon as I got in the restaurant? Turned all the fucking lights on. And still did one of these. around every fucking corner because it's apparently just human nature. It's one of those things like I'm watching the movie, I'm like, oh, this fucking idiot right here. And then I go to work at a restaurant where I hope there's no ghosts. I'm pretty sure there's no ghosts. But I'm still don't feel good about putting my head around the other end of that wall just yet. On the off chance something might be there, so I'm going to turn the lights on first.
It's so true, right? Because we all do that same thing. Like I do that in my own home. Like when I walk in, like if I open the front door, and if there's no lights on, we both frequent bars / work at them and get home late. Within a 10% probability rate that there's nothing in your living room waiting for you, right? Because the door was locked, you're the one who locked it, nobody else has a key, lights are off. But you still do the thing where you just kind of freeze and you get that light switch on and then take everything in first. Like you don't just barge in your door and like stand there in the pitch black and then fumble for the light switch. You still take that moment. It's like a primal thing, right? Where we have to see, we have to know, because there's that thing that still scratches in the back of your head, whether you're a horror movie fan or not, that what if this is that 1%, less than 1%, right? The numbers on home break-ins have got to be less than 1% of homeowners, so that fraction of a percent where somebody's home is broken into, like you still have that moment where you're just like, okay, but what if this is the time? And so it's interesting because the way Emil Hirsch goes about it, it's almost like the opposite. It's like he's lived with this creepiness so much that he just disregards the fact that it could be anything bad. Like this is always been in his family. He has lived above a mortuary and dead bodies on the reg his entire life. So what is there to be afraid of? I'm around this shit all the time. My cat hangs out in the vents all the time, which is also weird, by the way, whether or not your cat is a mouse or the fact that your cat just constantly has access to the vents. But then again, maybe they have a mouse problem, because he did not seem surprised when it showed up with a fat fucking rat. That thing was not just a field mouse that got in the house.
Oh yeah, and especially because it shows up through a vent that just doesn't have the grate on it, so it's almost like they're just, hey man, get up there, do your thing. And like I said, he just kind of nonchalantly scoops it up and just throws it in the biohazard bag. So
yeah, so he lives in this world where everything always seems creepy, so he's had to normalize it all. And so, and like I said, which is fascinating to me from another angle, which is I live in that world of watching these movies where something bad is always going to happen. So why do I still get surprised or scared when bad things happen? Especially and this is not a knock against the movie, that's going to sound like it is, but it's not. But especially when your jump scares are so textbook. That with the exception of one that we'll get to in a minute, which, by the way, if I could Icky Shuffle, I would on one I'll get to in a minute. But
I know where you're going with that one. But
the jump scares in this were just swell of music, perfect. It cuts back and forth, like you knew when they were coming. But this movie is so well executed that they still got me. The camera work on this was very tight. And, as I would assume it has to be a direct result of the fact that this was filmed in a very small space. I mean, one location, and it's all small rooms and tight hallways. And so we end up with this really tight camera work that gives you that feeling that you can't get away from anything. You're always just right there in the action. So these things are going to scare you.
yeah, and I felt the same way because, like you said, I don't watch near as much as you or Dave do, but I've watched enough movies to kind of get the beat by beat. And so I felt this exact same way of, oh yeah, this is about to happen. it's like I said with the cat, where it's, or even if it's not the cat, whatever it is that shoots across the vent, still scared me.
Yeah.
The woman with her face sewed shut still scared me. Even the lights exploding or not exploding.
All right, man.
We'll get there. But it's just like everything, and that was kind of almost. I can't think of the word for it, but it's just like you. What's his name? Alec Overd, or the.
Yeah.
It's like, you son of a bitch. Like, how did I know it was coming and you still got me every single time?
Yeah, he did a really good job with that. So I really enjoyed all of that. I did really like the progression of what little bit of story we got, right? Because it happened so quickly. Because what's interesting is as details are being revealed through them going through this autopsy, you don't realize at the time, like you're obvious to the fact that these must be story details, right? That there's going to be some sort of payoff for this. But what was really interesting was, I mean, we were in the final 10 minutes of this thing before any of those pieces made any fucking sense. Right. And so we got this moment where we got to live with Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch figuring this all out, because we got the aha right as they got it. This is not the type of movie where even if you were to watch it again and know, oh, she's some sort of witch that's still alive but not alive, and she has some sort of weird powers, even knowing that going into a second viewing, I don't see that really. I don't see where I'm going to be watching to be like, oh, I should have been able to figure it out from this clue. You know, I should have understood right here. The closest we got to something that was a tell as to where they were going was when he specifically says something about how corsets went out of style centuries ago. So we get this story build that doesn't feel like a story build. It feels like we're just along for some sort of weird supernatural ride, when all of a sudden there's a light bulb moment for everybody involved. And there's just enough looking back on it for it to make sense, for you to go, okay, these pieces do fit, even though I didn't see this coming. So I really like that. But again, like I said, the reason that I named this section, what the fuck? I mean, throughout the entire movie, it's like, oh, she's got stab wounds, but only on the inside, right? Like she's her lungs are just fucked, but everything on the outside's good, right? There's peat in her hair, but we don't even have that shit down here in Virginia. So all of that, when pieced together, they could see it, but none of it felt like at any point I was supposed to know what was happening. And honestly, even after the reveal, like you said, even once I got all that, I'm still going, but wait a minute, like, how did she bring these bodies back to life? Or did she? Because at the end, when the sheriff shows up, the bodies are back on the table, on the refrigerator slides, and they're not strewn about the floor. There's no, she's completely healed up. I mean, was she actually, and this is a question that I'm putting towards you, not rhetorical. What do you think? Was she actually controlling these bodies and making these things happen with the flame on the roof of the lab that seemed to go out right away, these bodies coming off the slabs? Or was this all some sort of weird mental thing that she was able to create?
So I'm going to throw out, just to kind of bookend the idea of what the fuck, is like we were saying, that even up until the end, I needed Brian Cox to say, they hint at, oh, this is only from the Northeast. You can only get peat from the Northeast, and
this flower is only from New England.
The limwood, blah 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 blah. Never at any point was like, I would like, oh, you know what's in the Northeast? Salem, Massachusetts.
Right.
He literally tore her fucking skin off her body, and I still had no clue what was going on. But I don't, because it's kind of one of those things. And I was wondering, with you as the professor of occult studies, and I do appreciate that you had just as much clue as I had going on, because I was like, okay, yeah. So she's got her tooth wrapped in a piece of cloth that they forced her to eat. That must be normal in some sort of cult ritual.
Right.
But apparently you had no idea about that either. Apparently you can also burn things into the inside of people's skin.
Again,
Apparently
yes, very strange.
Yeah. But anyway, it's interesting because I do love the idea that you can interpret the movie in several different ways. No, I don't think anything and I even hate saying definitively that I don't think anything actually happened, because I mean, Sheriff Burke and they all come in after the autopsy that apparently never happened. I mean, the storm wasn't real, which they got me on, because I never at any point was paying attention to the weather.
Correct.
There was never a tree. The lights in the mortuary never blew out, because whenever they show up to pick up Brian Cox's body and everything else, everything's business as usual.
Yeah, he's not surrounded by broken glass anymore. When he's reaching for that scalpel, either signifying to Emil Hirsch to kill him and end it, or because he was about to, cut off his own tongue to complete the whole thing, there's broken glass everywhere from the lights blowing out. But when they go to get his body, there's no broken glass on the ground.
Yeah, so I don't think it happened, but I'm also not wanting to say that I don't think it happened. And I think that is what I love the most about being able to watch a movie where I can definitively say that I definitively don't know what the fuck was going on.
Exactly. And like there are a couple other things that add credence to the theory of the fact that unless Emil Hirsch and Brian Cox did it, it didn't really happen, right? The hole in the door, that happened. Emil Hirsch cut that bitch up. Emma getting an axe to the face, that happened. We seen her body at the end. She dead. We saw these things, so we know that happened. But when they cut her skin away from her body, when they kind of flay her skin off the muscle, and we see that internal tattoo that doesn't make any goddamn sense, right? In any stretch of the imagination, does that make any sense? Even in, you get into like weird ritual stuff where something is supernaturally branded between skin and muscle, that doesn't make any sense, let alone not being able to see it from the outside if it's tattooed, because they cut just barely, just that top layer off. Tattoo ink is deep. That's why it lasts forever when you wash your skin and when you shed, which we all do constantly. So the fact that you couldn't see that through her skin, yet when Brian Cox seemed to be developing it to feel her pain, we could see his through his skin. So that doesn't add up towards it really happening. After they flay her skin from her muscle and we see all of this, from that point forward, anytime we see the body, skin perfectly placed right back up over the chest. She's not laying there out on a blanket of splayed skin with this tattoo revealed. From then forward, when we see it, her skin is back. It's not floppy like they just kind of threw it up there. It's perfectly where it was before we had that moment where he cut it off to see it. Like I talked about before, the broken glass on the ground, not there. The cloudiness of her eyes going away and coming, or going away. Well, they're cloudy again by the end. These things that led to everything that happened, well, they didn't seem to happen, right? And that's what's fascinating, because you're right. The radio comes on at the end and they're like, we're in for another bright and sunny day. wait a minute, it was storming so bad last night that the sycamore tree came down and we couldn't get out. But it didn't. We couldn't get the elevator hasn't been working because the power's out and the generator's not strong enough. Except for the elevator is working. Emma got downstairs. You're being followed by shotgun blast to the face guy, but then when you chop it, it's Emma. So the one time that they physically interacted with one of the other bodies, it didn't really happen. They're in the smoke and they're getting their asses wailed on, maybe, but we don't ever really see exactly what it is. This reminds me a lot of Cobweb in the fact that I believe, whether you choose to believe that this stuff actually happened or didn't, I think you're right. I think that there is nothing definitive to tell, and that's something that's really cool. The fact that we can sit here and we can pull this apart, and then still, because I'm right there with you. Do I think that any of it actually happened? No. Am I comfortable in saying that? Absolutely not. Not for a second do I feel good about saying I don't think anything happened, but I don't think anything happened. It's a very strange phenomenon that happened while watching this movie, where I'm doubting my ability to doubt, and it was very, very bizarre.
Yeah, because I was even like you mentioned the fire, because there's so much stuff that happens outside of, like you said, Brian Cox hitting Emma, where we only know it definitely happened because we saw it by those two characters.
Right.
But the fire thing, even in the moment, was like, I think the thing that gets me most is even the stuff where I was like, oh, well, that's fucking stupid. That would never happen. It was like, it's like they light this girl on fire, and then it goes up, sets the entire room on fire, and then give me the fire extinguisher, pull the pin, and there's the focus on, oh my god, the body didn't burn. Dude, the ceiling of the room you're in just stopped being on fire in half a second.
Right.
Why are you so focused on the body not being burned? Be glad you're fucking alive. What is going on right now? Also,
why is the first thing that you felt was necessary to put the fire out the video camera? It's like he gets the fire, so he's like, quick, save the AV equipment.
There was a small part of me that was really hoping that would come back to like, oh, there's like somebody's gonna, and we'll get to the thing that bugged me later, but there was a small part of me waiting for like, oh, we're gonna show some random Emmy or CSI guy just bagging this camera and then walking off into the darkness because you're right, the focus on the camera is like he gets the fire extinguisher, sprays it in the bottom corner of the room for like 2 seconds, and all of a sudden the entire fire is gone.
Yeah, and all they can do is be like, oh, look, she didn't burn. Motherfucker, nothing burned. Like, notice that. Like, there is no damage to a room that was, by the way, visibly dripping embers 3 seconds ago. Like, it's not like that stuff was just, it's not like there was just fire around that stuff. That shit was on fire and burning just a few seconds ago. And you aimed a fire extinguisher at the floor, and now it's all good. It's these clues of whether or not this stuff actually happened just keep piling up. And and I love that. I love that. Like the reference I made earlier in Cobweb. If you haven't listened to our Cobweb episode, by the way, if you're new, go back and find our Cobweb episode. I think it was January or February of this year. Dave and I lay out a absolutely beautiful idea of a different way to look at Cobweb than what's presented. And I feel like that same type of thing is happening here. That is why I regret nothing about buying this, because while I said I don't think having the knowledge of the Salem witch thing is going to affect my second viewing, I do think that this idea of trying to watch for whether or not these things are actually happening, that excites me about another watch through. Now, before you get to what bothered you. My one moment here, and I'm sure just about everybody who's watching this movie had this, but I wrote in my notes, Emma gets the axe before we knew it was Emma that was going to catch that axe to the face. Like that was, again, it's textbook, but it's still, when it happened, it's not like I wasn't celebrating that I was right. I was like, oh no, that guy just watched his dad kill his girlfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one that I can't say it in the moment. It was one of those where I was like, "Oh shit, what's it? They're creeping, like whatever whichever one of the things is creeping up on the elevator." And then as soon as he like finally like took the swing, I was like, "Oh, wait a second, something's wrong." And then but I was still at the same time trying to piece together, because I didn't remember from earlier on. He does say like, "Oh, I'll meet up with you at 11 instead of whatever," but I hadn't pieced together like when he's like, "It's my fault. I told her to come back for me." It's like, did you? I genuinely did not in the moment remember that he did, but it makes sense in retrospect, because it was one of those things I was putting together on the fly of like, oh yeah, it was, almost like a Chekhov's gun, where in the beginning of the movie, it's like, oh, what's this weird sound? Oh, it's my girlfriend who has let herself into my house and is creeping around. But now she's let herself into my house and is creeping around while me and my dad are tripping out and seeing zombies.
Yeah. So you had mentioned you were going to get to something that bothered you. So before we finish up with story, hit me with what bothered you throughout the course of this movie, or at a point in this movie.
Not through the course, at a point, and it's at the last point. To anybody making a movie, and I get it. It's a very difficult process. I can only imagine. I've never made a movie. Daniel's never made a movie.
Correct.
As far as I know.
None that be publicly released.
Fair enough. I'm sure it's a difficult process. I can only imagine how much work goes into it. Just because Marvel does it, you don't need to do the fucking teaser at the end of the movie.
I knew it. I fucking knew that was going to get you. As soon as that toe wiggled, I was like, oh, Hunger's going to fucking hate this.
Because that's the thing. I could deal with the song on the radio. Nice little pastiche thing. I could deal with you cut to black and you hear the tinkling. Perfectly fine. Don't show the fucking toe moving. She hasn't moved the entire goddamn movie.
Correct. Especially because what we see right before that is the ambulance driver looking at the radio, looks back, then he looks back to the road. If what we're supposed to believe here is whether or not this stuff is actually happening, because we're always seeing and hearing what Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch are seeing and hearing, then don't give that you're absolutely right. That was the one moment that destroyed that, because that was the minute that we became the omnipotent viewer, right? That was the moment where we got to see, what's on the other side of the curtain. Throughout this, we had always been POV with the characters. Now, suddenly, we are just kind of this omnipresent thing that gets more info than the characters have. And it really did bug me too. And I knew that's where you were going to go with that.
Well, and especially because the thing of it being, like we were talking about, is figuring out what is real and what's not. So like you mentioned, and I meant to mention it and just kind of got lost in my train of thought. So there's the whole thing where Brian Cox is like, I'll take whatever, just leave him alone. And he's gaining all of her injuries, and the milkiness of her eyes is going away, and she seems like her body's repairing. That would make sense to because now you get into this thing, because even after they come to pick up the body and say, hey, get it out of my county, send it to VCU, which I don't know why that made me laugh. I guess because a college basketball fan in me was
Go
like, I
Rams.
remember VCU. They did pretty good at basketball that one time.
And then Bama got their coach and did not do so well.
Texas got their coach.
Oh, that's right. No,
Shaka
Texas got.
Smart.
That's right. It was Shaka Smart. You're right.
I think you did that on purpose, but we're moving on. No, so it was just the idea of like, oh yeah, she's repairing herself, and so it would make sense. But did the injury? It just creates that extra little bit of confusion because like, why would you do that? Are you going to make a second movie where all of a sudden now she is a corporeal being who has gained enough power by murdering these people in their houses? Like, I just don't understand why you would add that extra little bit of, like we've been talking about. I like the doubt. The doubt is almost the point of the thing. Don't show me the toe wiggle. Like,
yeah.
like I said, pay off the little jingle for the joke earlier. Oh, the music is cutting in and out. It's spooky. It even bothered me that the music stayed constant in the van because it was never clear that the music was part of it until it was in the mortuary.
Right.
Like, is she gonna now? Is this dude gonna be driving down, listen to "You Got the Joy, Joy, Joy," and drive into a tree or something? Like, what the fuck is going on at this point? And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh my God, you got to the finish line and then fell flat on your fucking face trying to do too much.
Yeah, a fade to black with just the bell jingle would have been perfect. By the way, we're also both right. Anthony Grant also came from VCU before Shaka Smart. Anthony Grant was at VCU and he came to Alabama. So we are both right.
Touche.
So I was like, wait a minute. I know that I'm not thinking. As soon as you said Shaka Smart, I was like, that is Texas, but I'm thinking of somebody else. It's Anthony Grant that I was thinking of. So there we go. So moving forward,
Anthony
we're
Grant
already 40.
Hunger in Tuscaloosa. So
we're already 47 minutes into this, right? And we're just now getting through story, but that's because where we're going next, it's not going to take that long. I mean, we've used the phrase economy of characters before. We have. Hell, we probably overused it, right? Especially now it feels like we've overused it because we've used it to talk about movies that have 4 and 5 characters. But this movie's got 2 that matter, right? 3 if you count Jane Doe, but we can't really talk about her as a character. She's a story plot device, right? She's not a MacGuffin because she does matter, but she's a story element. So we're only looking at 2 main characters here. We just keep calling them by their real names. So in a section that we're calling a dynamic duo, I mean, let's get down to it. Let's talk about Emile Hirsch as Austin Tilden and Brian Cox as Tommy Tilden. I'll throw it to you, whichever one you want to talk about first.
All right. Well, so I've been thinking about it all day, and I decided earlier this morning because it was literally when I threw this movie out to you, first thing you said. So I'm going to save you, I'm going to start with Emile Hirsch. And I don't know what it is because I can't. Emile Hirsch is one of those guys. He looks like a lot of guys.
Yes.
I mean,
I feel like early in his career, Emile Hirsch got a bunch of roles because people thought they were contacting Zac Efron.
I can see that. The one I keep thinking of is like, wait, was he the guy from Across the Universe? But that was Jim something or other.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's not him.
Yeah, like the things I know, he played Christopher McCandless in was it In the Wilderness?
Yes. With the amazing.
He played Speed
Pearl
Racer
Jam
in the weird. He played the
Wachowski
like the
siblings
weird
Speed
American
Racer movie.
anime Speed Racer.
Yeah,
but it's like other than that, I can't really place him in anywhere. And after watching this, I hate to say it, I've got nothing against Emile Hirsch. I understand why I can't place him anything, because dude just doesn't have it. I'm not saying I could do better than he could. I'm also not saying I could do worse than he could, because he just there were a lot of times in the movie where he seemed like he was on screen just saying stuff.
Yeah, fair.
It's like even in and I'm going to throw out, because I'll bring it up again once we get to the Brian Cox part of it. So content warning for anybody with any issues with suicide or discussions of suicide. Even the stuff where it's like we finally get to the conversation about how, if I had any idea about your mother, and oh my God, Dad, like you put on this act for everybody else. Brian Cox is doing fucking laps with this dude, because it's just like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's indicative of my relationship with my family, but watching it was like, normal human beings don't have this conversation.
Right.
It's just like, I don't know. There's something about the way he delivers lines that was just very bland and very, I'm here to say stuff. I remember it makes me think of when we did the Nick Cage Wicker Man, where we were talking about how Francis Conroy has a certain way of delivering things.
Yes.
But his is just, I'm talking, there's a camera on me, and I'm talking. Hell, even when he's talking to his girlfriend about, oh, you got to smile for me. I'm going to, it was like nothing, I don't know, nothing he says matters to me at any point. It's like, I don't even, the one I'm hinted at early in the episode was how he talks about, like the one thing I missed is that he talks about, oh, well, you know, I haven't told him yet, but I'm going to do my own thing. I don't even remember if he said what his own thing was, because I didn't care. It's like, I get the gist is that he doesn't want to be a coroner like his dad. And I get that the only reason he's hanging around is because he feels sorry for his dad because his mom killed herself. But I kind of don't care. As terrible as that makes me feel to say, I just don't care about what he has going on at any point.
Yeah, Emil Hirsch is this guy that I'm right there with you, right? Like, I don't have any negative feelings towards Emil Hirsch, right? Like, seeing his name just doesn't move the needle one way or the other for me when it comes to watching a movie. I enjoy the visual spectacle of the Speed Racer movie. But that was those thanks to they were the Wachowski brothers at the time, they're the Wachowski siblings now. But I enjoyed the visual spectacle of that. But Emil Hirsch, it could have literally been anybody in that role, and that movie would have been exactly the same. I don't feel like Into the Wilderness, right? That's what it's called, Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
Into the Wild, yes, Into the Wild.
Yeah, I've got his IMDb pulled
up
now.
Into the Wild, right? Like, he did a great job in that movie, but it was also just beautifully written and amazingly scored, right? Like, there were so many things that outshined his performance that, again, you really could have maybe had anybody in that role, and I still would have walked away from the movie the same way. That's how I feel about this, right? I feel like, okay, so you got Emil Hirsch to do this. He was a year off of his assault charges, so good for the guy for managing to get work at the time. So so you get this guy who's a name, but you can get for cheap because he's got some shit going on. He hasn't really done anything big in a while. But ultimately, he didn't do anything for me here. The one thing I'll give him is if I talked about with the story, it may be a testament to his inability to act and do it well, but I did appreciate his lack of response to some of the jump scare things. It was a refreshing take on it. Now, is that because that's just how he lives his life? I don't know. right? But I was underwhelmed by his performance. Like even I wanted so badly for that moment when Emma dies to be the moment where I was like, look at this motherfucker acting his ass off. And he kneels down and he starts crying. And I'm like, oh no, you don't sound like you're really crying. Like this is bad.
Yeah.
As a person who has all of the emotions of Bender bending Rodriguez for the most part, I like to think that if I were 2.5 seconds removed from being within earshot of my girlfriend taking an axe to the face, that I would be a fucking mess, regardless of what was going on. And that wouldn't even qualify as sobbing what he did, right? Like sounded like he was trying to sob. I'll give him that. But that's not what we got. So in a role that was attempted to be dynamic, it felt like the role was written to be dynamic, right? He's the one who has the revelation. Dad, New England, 1600, Pete, flowers, corsets. Oh my God, she's a witch, or accused of being a witch, whatever. It still was. It still was just. It was so. It was so blank. It was so dead. And so, the other side of that is you're right. As soon as you suggested this movie to me, I was like, holy shit, Brian Cox, let's go. I'm in. I love Brian Cox. Brian Cox has got chops. If you watch Super Troopers, right? And the guy is hilarious. He is phenomenally funny in that. He's got a part in Braveheart, so the guy's got drama chops, right? And if you have ever watched Succession, holy shit, he's so good in Succession. So I had no expectations for the movie as a whole, but I did go into it with Brian Cox on this pedestal of, let's see you do scary. And he didn't disappoint, man. He at the beginning, he gave us the, just like the really good dad he's not mad you didn't get the cause of death right. He's just a little disappointed because it's pretty fucking obvious, but he did it in like that, that dad way where it's like, no, I'm disappointed, but don't let it bring you down too much. I'm just really fucking good at what I do. And then as things go on, he's, we get more of the dad stuff where he's trying to not reveal that he's hurt. He's trying to be the one who keeps it together. But then when he's interacting with Emil Hirsch and his girlfriend, and he plays the really good prank with ringing the bell, some stuff like that. That look that he has on his face, just that shit-eating grin about knowing what's coming, man. Like he continuously he oversold, not to a cheesy amount, but enough to balance out the fact that Emil Hirsch definitely had a very low ceiling for what he could do emotionally, like that elevator scene where we get the reveal about the mom and all of that finally plays out. While yes, Emil Hirsch was not doing that well, like you're getting devastating news immediately on the heels of losing your girlfriend, and you're still just like, well, none of it matters. It's in the past. What do we do now? No, fuck that, man. Like, but Brian Cox is just sitting there, just pouring it on him. And like that, when he's, do you know why I called her Ray? Because she was always my ray of sunshine. Like that whole fucking thing he did was so good. This guy can act, and for being one half of the basically entire cast of this movie, he carried 85% of the weight of what made this movie good.
Yeah, it's hard to describe because it's just one of those things. It's like my first thought earlier when I was trying to kind of put all these things, it's like making notes in my phone, and I will admit, again, I don't know if I can really credit Emil Hirsch with it. Not to sound like we're just dunking on him at this point, but it's like they did seem like they had a good father-son dynamic in the sense of like, first of all, I will always love the trope of the nonchalant corner.
Oh,
It's like
absolutely.
I'm just blasting speed metal, cutting bitches up. Just
The only thing missing was him actively eating a sandwich while staring at like an open Y
I was
incision.
almost like just watching the TV, like someone's gonna pull out something to eat at some point.
Yeah.
They didn't, but I did get the payoff of Emil Hirsch doing the like, let me take my glove off and just try to fucking slingshot it at the trash can. But they did have that dynamic of like like you said, as much as it's going to be me crediting Brian Cox and kind of digging Emil Hirsch, is I bought the dynamic of the well-educated, talented father whose dumbass son is just trying to follow the family name. Because like you said, the bit about, oh well, why is, what do you think it is? Oh well, that's wrong, but see if you can figure out why it's wrong.
Right.
That kind of thing. And again, it was just even like, I'm not, because it's a story thing that I'm trying to not put on Emil Hirsch, is the idea of like, I've got it in my notes as like shitty little one-liners, like I said earlier, of like, oh yeah, I don't want to follow in the family business, Dad, but I'm going to ditch my hot girlfriend to come help you cut up this lady. Just kind of the idea of like, I never really got any agency from Emil Hirsch about why, but I fully believe Brian Cox the entire time, because honestly, Brian Cox, please, if you ever hear this episode, read me a story.
Yeah, please do.
Tell me everything's going to be okay. Tuck me into bed at night. I can listen to that man read the dictionary. I don't know what it is about Brian Cox.
I'm pistol whipping the next motherfucker who says shenanigans.
Give me the goddamn soap. He was fucking William. Even as William Stryker, I felt like he was a good dad. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable about it, Daniel. What is it about Brian Cox? I've not even watched Succession, and I want him to be my dad.
Yeah, he's something incredible. What's interesting from reading the production notes of this, apparently Martin Sheen was originally cast in that role and pulled out. And
I couldn't buy it. And of course you're going to be biased watching a movie and seeing somebody in a role, but it just, even trying to picture it is, I couldn't see anybody besides Brian Cox delivering that speech about Ray and what he would have done to do anything. Hell, even like, it's fucked up because in my notes, I literally wrote in parentheses, funny ? Is I knew it was coming when he breaks the cat's neck and then almost nonchalantly throws it into the crematorium. There was part of me that wanted to laugh, but there was also the gravitas he had without saying a fucking word about how, and of course he does say it at one point, but I knew in the moment of like, oh yeah, that was his wife's cat. The way, he's literally just hugging the cat and then just kind of nonchalantly like, oh yeah, it's being cremated now. And even just that was like, oh yeah, that was his wife's cat. And then he delivers the lines talking about how it was his wife's cat. That's one of the only things he had left of her.
Yeah, with that bone snapping sound effects always get me. They always do, especially like that, and just that moment that was so heavy anyway. Just that it's just punctuated. There's no music playing, and we just get that one swift snap that's so surgical in the way that he does it, and it was, oh God, that was a brutal little moment. But yeah, I mean, Brian Cox was incredible in this. I was so happy. And like I said, when we started this, yes, sure, Jane Doe is a character too, but she's not a character that we can discuss having any development or anything like that. She's a plot device who happens to be in the shape of a human being. So really just those two to talk about. But I mean, was there anything else you wanted to get to before we wrap this thing up, Hunger? Did we miss anything?
So I'm going to time this because I really thought, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on this, because going in, I had known just enough to, from I hadn't done like my usual IMDb deep dive stuff that I normally do, because I wanted to come into this one raw, as weird as that is to say in context. Knowing that Jane Doe was actually played by an actress, because there's that part of my mind of like, these guys just want to see some pussy. Like, what's going on here? Like, why does it need to be a real? You know what I mean? It's like, why does it need to be a real person?
Right.
Outside of like some close-ups, like, why do you need this woman on the slab? But
yeah,
it worked, and it I can't really explain why, because like we've talked about, there's the nuances of, oh, the eyes are different. Oh, her mouth didn't look that way a second ago. Oh, things are positioned differently. That it's like, how do I almost, like, I was wondering if you would even have, hey, we're going to do, like, there's obviously the two, but we're going to have a third character, and it's this woman who doesn't say a word and barely moves the entire time. And I say barely because the fucking toe. I don't know what it was. There was something that had weight about her actually physically being there and not being a prosthetic, not being a dummy or whatever it is that would normally be there. Because, I mean, of course, it was a prosthetic at some point. They're not actually cutting this woman up, especially since they put her back together so well. But
right. Well,
I'm just curious. I'm curious to know what you think about
the closest thing I can come to as to why it was so important is because if we'd had a single moment of this uncanny valley element, right, where if there had been one shot where it was suddenly obvious that they just went out and bought a real girl and put her on the slab, then that would have shattered so much of what they worked so hard to build. I believe there's a connection that we made there by seeing, because there were some damn close-ups on this, and we needed to see pores and the tiny hairs on a person to really continue to buy in. So I think that it was a genius move to have a woman actually play this role. Which, by the way, like, do you think they just went and asked somebody, or do you think there was like a call sheet that was like, we need to paint you white and your titties got to be out? Like,
I mean, if I obviously at a certain point did do the IMDb deep dive after I watched the movie, so I do know that she was interviewed and all that.
Okay.
And I, weirdly enough, found the thing about how she was comfortable with it, because early in her modeling career, she appeared in a room full of people wearing nothing but shoes.
Okay.
So it's almost one of those things like, I don't know. I never want to know how Hollywood finds anybody.
Fair. You know what? Hollywood is I don't need to know how the sausage is made. Like,
Yeah.
ultimate like use of that analogy. I never want to know what's going on behind the scenes at Hollywood, because very rarely do I ever find out. And it's something that makes me go, oh, that's cute. So you know what? I'm good with that. I recant my statement of wanting to know what that call sheet was like, because I don't care anymore.
Well, especially knowing that, nothing against the Europeans, but the director is from Norway, and I feel like there is a lot of things that were probably askewed outside of Hollywood standards.
Fair enough. And it was filmed in the UK, I believe, right? So,
Sure.
Yeah, I think it was. I think I saw that somewhere. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so there you have it. It's the Autopsy of Jane Doe. We've done a lot with it, and now it's time for us to rate this thing. I mean, this is where we end a movie every time. We give it a rating. Now, if you're new to the show or you just need a quick reminder, regardless of the fact that we have referenced so many other movies from either these actors or this director or anything like that, things that it reminded us of, we never rate a movie against other movies. We only look at what a movie is trying to give us. We rate it against itself. So in order to do that accurately, every movie we create a unique rating system that is only applicable to the movie at hand. And Hunger, as the guest host today, it is on you. Do you have a rating system that we should use that would be unique to the Autopsy of Jane Doe?
I do. And it's I feel like it is the overarching reference I have to make, and it's perfect considering the mild rant that we went on halfway through there. I think we have to rate this out of 5 toe bells.
It makes the most sense, right? So, out of a possible 5 toe bells, Hunger, what do you give the Autopsy of Jane Doe?
See, I've been back and forth on this all day. I mean, I messaged you earlier because I watched this last night. I'm almost exactly 24 hours removed. And I know what my opinion was last night when I finished it. I know what my opinion was when I woke up earlier today and have thought about it most of my shift early this morning. It's like I told you, I've been really excited to talk about this. And even though there's been a lot of picadillos I had that like I said, as weird as it is, life is life. I'm any issues I had with, the rationale of why is he going hunting through his house almost for the sake of finding a jump scare? I get to work, and what am I doing? I'm looking around corners waiting for there to be some shadow looking back at me. I don't know. Every minor thing I have to take away from this almost washes itself out, and we said it. I can't unsay it. Emil Hirsch kind of sucks. Nothing against the dude. Emil Hirsch, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. You're just not doing it for me. So it's not enough for 1, but I almost have to go 4.5 just because, a bunch of little things. It doesn't feel like enough to take 1 off, but it doesn't feel like a complete thing altogether. So I'd say 4.5 toe bells.
Okay. I'm going to be right close to you, right? Because I am doing the thing where I also am wondering between Emil Hirsch's performance and just the shattering of the deception that this movie could have brought by the very last, half second of it. Is that worth a whole toe bell? Because other than those two things, I really enjoyed this, and I was tense even when I knew what was going to happen. I wasn't disappointed when I thought was going to happen happened. I wasn't sad that they didn't kind of okey doke me with that stuff. That being said, I'm having a hard time deciding whether or not Brian Cox's performance was enough to outweigh again. And yeah, man, Emil, if you're listening, dude, sorry, but this was not your finest work. And so I'm trying to figure out if Brian Cox was good enough that I don't care a ton about how Emil Hirsch did. And I think that ultimately I'm going to kind of land with you, because when it was all said and done, I really enjoyed this. I would definitely recommend this to just about anybody. It's not overly gory. The special effects are really good. When we get them, you could tell they relied a lot on practicality when it came to the special effects in this movie, which is fantastic. They gave us enough that, we've talked about this movie for almost as long as it ran. And so when you've got a movie that you can do that with, especially like you said, at an 86 minutes, there's something there. And I can't think of anybody where I'd be like, you might want to avoid that. Unless it was somebody who I was just like, look, you don't like scary shit. And this movie does get pretty scary sometimes. So you know what? I'm going to be right there with you. And I'm going to call it 4.5 toe bells as well. So there you have it. It's a unanimous 4.5 toe bells for the Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016. A fantastic movie that was new to both Hunger and I. So before I do the sign off, Hunger, you got anything you want to tell the people about? What do you got going on, man?
Same old, same old. If you're in the Tuscaloosa area, every Monday I do trivia at the Gray Lady on Greensboro in downtown. So if you want to come by every Monday, this Monday, as we're recording this at the very least, will be premium cable. So we're doing HBO, Showtime, good stuff like that. Pretty much all I got, unless you love good barbecue and you happen to be in the North Tuscaloosa area, come by Who's Q and Brew. I'm the general manager over there. Get you some pretty darn good barbecue.
It's damn good. I slept on it for a long time. And I have
best barbecue or best burger Daniel's ever had.
It is the best burger I've ever had. It is amazing. They do half-pound burgers there. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. Also, if you follow at Tallboy Trivia on Instagram, as you can see over here on Hunger, you will notice that every Monday when he releases a clue for his trivia game that is sponsored by Shiver. And so we do our creepy clue. So this relationship goes beyond him just being the occasional guest host here. Hunger and I talk every day and spend a lot of time together. So if you've enjoyed the show, make sure you head over to shiverpod.com where you can find links to all of our social media outlets. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. All of those things at ShiverPod. Hit us up at shiverpod at gmail.com if you got something long form you want to know. We've got our next couple episodes planned. We're going to be back into stuff that was released within the last 12 months. We've got 2 really great ones coming up. So make sure you follow us on social media. I am working on it, right? I've got an alert set on my phone that this will be posting every day. I'm trying. Like, that summer got off the rails and the school year's been something, but we're here. We're working hard. We're back. Make sure you follow us. Let us know if there's something that's new out there you think we should watch. We know what a lot of you guys have been saying. Trust me, we've got those on deck if they're on streaming or coming to streaming soon. So we hope to see you. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.